Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Brian E. Roach.
Hey everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground video podcast, your source for everything black and gold. Before we get started, I want to thank and welcome our new official partner, StubHub, who we're partnering up with to help bring you guys some discounts on Steelers tickets and other tickets. So if you go to our website, steelcityunderground.com/tickets, you'll find a link where you can use that link to jump over to StubHub. If you do that and you purchase some tickets of any kind, it helps us out, it helps you out. It's a beautiful thing. So we're really glad to be partnering up with StubHub. Today, as it feels like I've been doing for a lot of this offseason, I find myself thinking about contracts. The great news is TJ Watt signed. So we've got TJ Watt. All our draft picks are signed. That's anymore in this day and age, that's a foregone conclusion. The way that the agreements are written out with the players and how the rookie deals are structured, it's unheard of, generally speaking, to have an episode like we had with Joey Bosa last year where he's holding out, because the money's not really going to change. It's really more about the guaranteed money and the upfront money. So, it was, while there was starting to be some speculation, TJ Watt hasn't signed yet, why is it taking so long? There's other things that go into it, too. First of all, the people who are picked directly above him, well, that impacts and can impact his deal, and the people who are picked directly below him, if they're signed before he is, that can impact his deal. Because, it should be equitable, it should be within the right ranges, and the good news is, it doesn't matter, every one of all of our draft picks are signed, so that's good news. Who's not signed? Well, Alejandro Villanueva is not signed, and Le'Veon Bell is not signed, and there's been a lot of chatter about especially Le'Veon Bell, but even a little bit about Alejandro Villanueva. Now, the nice thing is OTAs are done, and we started mandatory minicamp. And Alejandro Villanueva, who did not have to come to mandatory minicamp because he is not currently under contract, and it's only mandatory if you are under contract, right? Otherwise, it was, all the other OTA stuff was voluntary. But this is mandatory, but only if you're under contract. Well, Alejandro Villanueva, again, showed the kind of guy he is, and the fact that he understands that he has more to learn, more improvement to make. He showed up, and he's been participating in minicamp. Le'Veon has not. And I don't mean that as a slight to Le'Veon Bell. I've heard the quotes from Ben that Ben would like him to be there. I'm sure they would all like Le'Veon to be there. And does it send a message to the Steelers that he's not there? Yeah, I think the message is, I had groin surgery not that long ago. I haven't signed my tender. I don't have to be there, so I'm not there. But he's been around the facility. It's not like he's been a stranger to the Steelers. And the idea, realistically, that he's going to hold out and not take a $12.12 million single-year franchise-tendered contract is absurd. First of all, he can't go anywhere else. He's an exclusive rights guy. He can sign with us or he cannot play. And $12.12 million is a lot of money. Right now, the number one, the highest paid back in the league, only makes $8 million a year. So $12.12 million is that's $4+ million more than the highest paid back. It would make him by far the highest paid back in the league, going away. So and frankly, yeah, Le'Veon deserves it. I mean, he's good. He's that good. He deserves to be paid. I don't know that he deserves to be paid $12.12 million every year. And I'm sure the Steelers are hoping that if they can get him under contract for a long-term deal, that it's going to be at a rate that is fair both to Le'Veon and to the team. What is that rate? It's a good question. Is it more than the $8 million that other guy makes? And I'm going to look it up so that I can tell you, because I can't remember who it was. Even though I just wrote an article about this, I cannot remember who the guy is that's making $8 million a year. It's LaShawn McCoy. LaShawn McCoy. Sorry, my bad. Should have known that, but it's LaShawn McCoy. So, does Le'Veon deserve to be making more than LaShawn McCoy? Yeah, probably he does. Okay, but you got to give some credibility to what the Steelers are doing. They're not, and they never have. The Steelers don't overpay guys, right? They're not the kind of team that just throws money at guys and says, no, yeah, whatever, we're going to just pay you whatever you want. No, they have a system, and it works for them, all right? And we should all be glad that they follow this same system. Yes, we've just gotten out of some cap hell over the past few years where we're always restructuring things and we're always trying to make it work so that we can get everybody in under the cap. Well, we're not in that position right now, and that's a good thing, right? And so the idea that they're just going to say, well, okay, whatever, you want $12 million a year, we're going to give you $12 million a year, or even the idea that people are saying he deserves $12 million a year. I'm not saying, I don't really know that he does. I don't know anybody who deserves $12 million a year. I don't know that there's any job that's really worthy of that, but that's beside the point, right? He definitely does deserve to be the highest paid running back. He could be the highest paid running back making $8.5 million a year. He could be the highest paid running back making $9 million a year, or even 10. Now, the truth is, it's not really going to come down to annual figures. All right, it's gonna matter. What is the upfront money? What is the signing bonus? What are the incentives in the contract? All those things are going to be what determine whether the contract is acceptable to Le'Veon Bell and to the Steelers. The Steelers probably, if I'm the Steelers, I would like an incentive-heavy contract with limited guaranteed money. Why? Because only 1 year in his playing history has Le'Veon managed to play all 16 games. Only once out of the 4 years. Why? Because he's one wrong move, one failed drug test away from a very long suspension. If I'm the Steelers, I want protection from that. Now, if I'm Le'Veon Bell, I want to get paid, right? I want the money, as they say in Jerry Maguire. Show me the money. I'm sure that Le'Veon wants to get the Benjamins. I can't believe I said that. That's so old, right? I said the Benjamins. So silly. Such a silly old man. Anyway, he wants to get paid. And you can't blame him, right? So he's going to want as much of his contract guaranteed as he can get. So there's got to be some kind of common ground in between there that says, here's what we're willing to give you up front. Here's how it's going to amortize over the length of the contract. Here is what your incentives are, and here's what's guaranteed. I got to be honest, I don't think that this deal gets done this year. That's my gut. My gut is, and I hope I'm wrong. But I don't think the Steelers sign Le'Veon this year. Partly because I think Le'Veon probably wants, and his agent, between the two of them, and don't think the agents don't have a lot of influence on these guys, and that the agents, who are only getting paid if their player gets paid, right? That the agents don't have their incentives to getting these deals the right way for them. And they want more guaranteed money because then they get more guaranteed money. So the agents are really going to want a certain level of contract for Le'Veon. They probably want something shattering. Of course they do. They want to announce something huge. Plus there's egos involved in the agents. And the agents, if they can get Le'Veon this huge contract, can go out to other players and say, look what we did for him. Come to us. And now they can make more money and get richer and richer and richer, right? Okay, whatever. The thing is, if I'm the Steelers, I almost want to say, look, you had a great year last year. We appreciate you playing hurt. Fantastic. But we did lose you for 4 games. And you were kind of ineffectual when we needed you the most. In the AFC Championship game, you had to bow out. I would like to see you play all 16 games. I would like to see you play throughout the playoffs. I would like to see you have a great year for us at a huge price tag of $12.12 million for that year and stay healthy. if he can do that, I think next offseason they can get the kind of deal they want, all right? If Le'Veon doesn't have any problems, stays healthy, and performs the way we all know he can perform, I think he can get a deal that's maybe $10 million plus. He's not getting $15 million. They're not going to pay $15 million a year to the running back. They're not. No, he's not going to get $15 million. But he can get a $10+ million deal, which would still make him easily the highest paid running back in the NFL. But I just don't think it's going to happen this year. And it's not just the agents. It's not just Le'Veon. It's the Steelers. Let's be frank. This is a business for them, guys, right? It's a business. They're in the business of making some money. The Steelers have never seemed to come across as money hungry, right? They want to make a profit. Of course they do. They got shareholders. They got a bunch of multiple owners. They got people they have to say, and have meetings and report back to and say, here's what we did and here's what we did and here's how we got money. But I don't think they're as obsessed with profit as some other teams may be and some other owners may be. Steelers is more about winning. But at the same time, it still has to be operated in a fiscally responsible manner. Now, what does that essentially mean for them? Like I said, I think it means when you're dealing with Le'Veon Bell, who is a guy that you cannot question his work ethic, you cannot question his commitment, you cannot question his talent, but you can question his availability. That has been a sticking point for 4 years. His availability has not always been there. And with that being the case, it's hard for them to give him a gigantic deal at this point. And I don't know that they're going to offer him the deal that Le'Veon wants. So I think Le'Veon ends up playing on the franchise tag. Now, I've said that before. I've written about that before. I think Le'Veon plays on the franchise tag this year, and that is where we end up. And then if he has a fantastic year, if he is stellar and goes and blows up the world and makes it through the playoffs, and the Steelers win number 7, right? And everything is beautiful, then he's going to get paid. I mean, he's already, look, don't get me wrong. The man is getting paid $12.12 million a year for even just for 1 year. That's still getting paid, right? That's a lot of money for 1 year. Again, the closest is LaShawn McCoy at $8 million a year, and then it's $7 million a year for Doug Martin, $6.7 for Leonard Fournette. It's downwards from there, right? So at 12.1, that's a lot of money, and he's a third higher than the next guy up, right? $4 million plus higher. Okay, enough about Le'Veon. I'll leave it at this. I don't think he signs a long-term deal this year. I think by the time they get to the July 15th date when that franchise or that franchise tag tender has to be signed because they can't continue to work on or can't sign him to a long-term deal and throw it away. I think that doesn't happen. And so I think Le'Veon plays under the franchise tag, which is unfortunate because that's a big cap hit. Even though we're already set for it, it would be nice if we could knock some of that money off because we got other people to sign. Number 2 on the list, Alejandro Villanueva. The more time goes by, look, if you just judge this off of Al himself, off of Mr. Villanueva himself, the man is a stand-up guy. He has shown his character. He came to OTAs, signed the waiver that gets him paid without having a contract. He is at mandatory minicamp, even though for him it is not mandatory because he is not under contract. But the man understands I need to get better. The man understands I have work to do. I have not achieved my ultimate goal, nor has this team. You cannot question Alejandro Villanueva's dedication or his character. You can't. I am going to say, maybe throw a question in about his willingness to trust his agent. It may be a little too big. Here's the thing. When Calvin Beachum decided he was worth X amount of dollars, Calvin Beachum left. That's why Alejandro Villanueva has the job he has, right? Because he proved himself on the field, and when Calvin Beachum wanted more than what the Steelers thought he was worth, opened up the door. it's almost beyond belief to me that I don't believe that Alejandro Villanueva has the kind of mentality or character that will cause him to sit out training camp. Once we get to training camp, if they don't have a deal done yet, I don't know that he would still sit out. I don't believe Alejandro Villanueva is the kind of guy that's going to hold out. I don't think he would do it to his teammates because he has that Army mentality, that Ranger mentality, which is these are my brothers. Not that the rest of the Steelers don't have that mentality. Don't get me wrong, but that he's coming from a different place, right? It's about duty, it's about responsibility, and I don't see him saying, the hell with all that. I want to get paid. I'm sitting out. So I expect him to show up and play. However, I can see some animosity potentially being built up if he is forced to play under a $655,000 tender this year, and then next year is a potentially not an exclusive rights free agent, but a restricted free agent. And given, Steelers always have the right or first right of refusal, the Steelers essentially own Big Al for 2 years. And he doesn't have a choice of going someplace else. So his choices are don't play and don't get paid. And I have written this, and I'm going to say it again. I'm going to say it about as loudly and as clearly as I can. It would be the absolute worst mistake that Alejandro Villanueva could make to not play, to take this to the point where he was sitting out. And I don't believe he'll do that. But it would be insanity. Why? Because Gerald Hawkins is sitting right there, and when you aren't on the field, and Mike Tomlin said it this week at the opening of minicamp, I'm focused on the guys who are here because those are the guys that can help us. So if Big Al's not there, which he is right now, but if down the road he's not there, guess who is? Gerald Hawkins is there, and he's under contract because he's still under a rookie deal for several years. He's younger than Big Al, and he has oodles. Let's say oodles. I don't know what word I was trying to use there, but oodles. He has oodles of potential, right? He's got a better pedigree, quite frankly, than Al does. Al's been great. I mean, I think he's been way better than anybody thought he was going to be. He continues to improve, and just the dedication the man shows prove that he could be even better. But he is going to be 29 by the time the season starts, which means by the time next season starts, he's going to be 30. And that is, even though he doesn't have the miles from playing, he's got age still causes your body to start to break down. I know I'm old, man. Your body breaks down. It just does. So, I used to have the guns. I used to be doing the stuff. Now I'm just old. So, at some point, breaks down. And there's a limited window for Al, right? Where he's going to be able to play at top and peak performance. And I think it's right now. And so I get that he's trying to maximize, and I've said this before, again, this is probably his big payday. Now, I've read some stuff and I've heard some speculation. Well, why don't they just sign him to a 2-year contract for $4 million? That would be fair and nice. But they already own his rights for probably about $1 million for the next 2 years. Why would they just say, let's just throw $3 million at you? We already own you. No, the Steelers want to lock him up for a longer term, right? And, you can float it out. Look, Marcus Gilbert makes $6 million a year, okay? And at $6 million, that is, that's a pretty good number. Pouncey makes a good number, right? Ramon's probably the lower end of the spectrum there. And DeCastro just got a nice deal. We're not necessarily going to jump a guy who's only played 2 years. Remember, Al's only got 2 years of service in. And decide you're going to put him up high above, your established guys. Just isn't likely. Now, the biggest annual salary out there is Russell Okung, okay, as a tackle. He makes $13.2 a year. Now, just think about that. It used to be the running backs made all the money, and then the offensive linemen didn't make jack. The offensive linemen are now making some big scratch, and the running backs are only making $8. Hey, wow. how things have changed, right? I know Craig Wolfley is probably going, dang, why couldn't I play now? But be that as it may, right? If you've got, let's say, if they could sign Al to 4 years, maybe 5 years at $20 million, in my mind, okay, in my worldview of this, in my vision of the Steelers' offensive line, is that a huge number? No. As I just said, Russell Okung is making $13.2 a year. So, $20 million, well, for 5 years, that's not great, right? But that's a huge number. And remember, this is not a pedigreed, surefire, was going to be, recruited by everybody in the universe. Everybody knew he was going to be a superstar tackle. This is a guy who got cut as a defensive end from the Eagles, who Mike Tomlin simply looked across and said, oh my God, there's a mountain of a man. Maybe he could play offensive tackle. And then he and Mike Munchak, and don't get me wrong, because it's really more Alejandro Villanueva than it is Mike Munchak and Mike Tomlin. But between the group of them, they've turned this guy into a high-quality, high-caliber starting left tackle in the NFL, okay? And yes, he deserves to get paid, but does he deserve to get more money than, let's say, Kelvin Beachum is getting right now? Remember, they let Kelvin Beachum go away because they didn't want to pay him, and he's making $8 million a year. $8 million a year. Well, at 5 years for $8 million a year, that's, if my math is right, that'd be $40 million. I don't think the Steelers are going to give Big Al $40 million for 5 years. I think it's possible they might do somewhere in the range of 20, 25, maybe 30. I don't know. I have no inner, vision. I have no, much as I like to say that Art II does not make a move without calling me first. He never has called me. It's really, you hurt me, Art. You hurt me. You don't call. You don't talk. You don't ask. What happened to us? No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, he doesn't. I have no inside pipeline, right? But it makes sense. It makes sense if they can get Al to commit to maybe 4+, maybe 5, maybe $6 million a year. That's 10-time increase on his salary. Are you kidding me? That's a huge number. And, he'll be set. He'll be taking care of his family, and he's locked up for another 5 years that way. And look, I don't care if they fronted it, give him a huge, nice chunk of change as a signing bonus, something that equates out over the life of the contract, right? So that the numbers are there, but he's got some money up front. I think that's all fair and good, and they deserve. And Al's done what he needed to do to deserve to be taken care of, and the Steelers should take care of him. It's the question of what we want. And my concern after listening to some of the stuff that Alejandro Villanueva said at OTAs and the tenor of how things are going, as well as just, I guess, the word on the street, which is that they're not even close. The two sides are like, oh, let me knock my mic around. The two sides are like, you can't see my hands because they're too far apart. Well, that's how they are, right? They're too far apart. And if that is, in fact, the case, I think, to be honest with you, that's more on Al and his agent than it is on the Steelers. The Steelers don't strike me as being an unfair team. They know what they're willing to pay. And it's their right to say, this is the formula we have. This is what we value this position at. And this is a huge increase in money for you. I understand it's not going to make you a top 10 paid tackle. You shouldn't be a top 10 paid tackle. Listen, I don't know the abuse these guys take. I know the abuse I took in college and the abuse I took in high school playing football. And I still have aches and pains from it, right? But again, I'm old, so it's worse. But, these guys sacrifice their bodies. They sacrifice their long-term health. And I get it. They need to be paid for that. But you also have to say that even though Al has done a fantastic job, and I really don't want to take anything away from him. He's done a great job. But he's had a lot of help from Ramon Foster, and the other guys have helped support him to make sure that he does well. And he's put in the work. Again, don't get me wrong. It's just, if you take a look at where he ranks, He's not a top 10 tackle right now. He could be at some point in his career the best tackle in the league. It's possible. The way he works and the effort he puts into it, he could make himself that guy. But he ain't right now. And there's no guarantee he ever will be. And the Steelers are not going to pay him like he is that guy right now. That being said, this is another contract I would like to see get done, and I don't think's gonna. I put the onus of this on this one and on Le'Veon's, probably more on the agent than I do on the Steelers. I think the Steelers have probably made legitimately fair offers. Again, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm giving them too much credit. Maybe they've been cheapskates and they're like, we're only going to give you $1 million a year because, we can get away with it and we own you, punk. I doubt it. It doesn't seem like their style, right? This is the group of people who let people sleep on their couch, and that Art just gives, Art Sr., the chief, used to just, give guys money to do stuff and go buy them things, and Dan Rooney would treat them to things. No, I don't see that as being the way they're going to deal with these guys. Doesn't mean I'm right. Maybe they've gotten us all fooled for these years, but it doesn't seem likely. It's more likely to me that the agents who, I honestly wish the agents didn't exist. I think they're as bad as lawyers. It's a middleman, right? Work a deal for yourself. I do. When I go get my contract, I don't have an agent. I'm a software developer. And I think I'm a pretty good software developer for what I do. But I don't have an agent. Nobody's negotiating my contract for me. I negotiate my contract for myself. I sit down and say, this is what I need to make. And if the boss don't want to pay me that, he says, get the hell out. And I'm done. If he thinks I'm good enough, I make the money. It's different. I get it. It's not the same for these guys. And they're very specialized, and there's a limited amount of jobs, and these guys do it at a high level. But I think agents add a problem into the mix. Anyway, I think that maybe Al and Le'Veon need to kick their agents in the butt and say, get the deal done. Stop looking for historic numbers and get the deal done. That's the only way I expect these two deals to get done this year. I think that I think Le'Veon plays under the franchise tag, and I am going to tell you that I don't know. If somebody says give me a percentage, I'd say it's 90% chance that Alejandro Villanueva plays this season at his restricted free agent offer, so it is tender, because I don't think they get the deal done, not unless something changes dramatically. And if that's the case, I think next year when he goes out and tests what other teams are going to be willing to offer, because the Steelers are going to put a tag on him of some kind. They're going to say, we're going to say he's worthy of a 1. So he's a restricted free agent, right? So if you want to pay him, you got to give us a first-round pick. I don't know if somebody's going to give up a first-round pick for him. So it's iffy. But that leads us to some other areas where these all things mix into are part of this. I think a contract will be done before training camp. I just don't think it's going to be Le'Veon, and I don't think it's going to be Alejandro. I think it's going to be Stephon Tuitt. That's what I think. I think there's a good chance that Stephon Tuitt gets an extension. I read a piece the other day that people went nuts. People went bonker crazy because Stephon Tuitt, who had an injury, had surgery on a finger, right, was not at training camp participating. He wasn't participating because he had an ouchie on his finger and he was waiting off the side. He wasn't supposed to be participating, but he was there. He just didn't participate because he had an injury. And people were going, oh, Stephon Tuitt holding out for a new deal. He's going to hold out. This is, I wrote this in the piece I wrote about it, Le'Veon. I said, there's only X number of days. Right now it's 87. I don't know, somewhere in that range. 86, 87, 85. I don't know. It's in the 80s. There's 80 some odd days until training camp. Until kickoff. It cannot go fast enough. We need other stuff to talk about. We need to get to training camp. We need to get to a situation where we have pads on, where people are doing backs on backers, where there's actual hitting and there's actual football occurring. So we could talk about that instead of made up nonsense that is being discussed and people are just creating drama. There is no drama right now. Stephon Tuitt not holding out for a new contract. Stephon Tuitt is quoted as saying, "I don't even think about the contracts. I'm here to get better." Alejandro Villanueva is not holding out for a new contract right now, even though of everybody, he probably has the most legitimate right to do so. Instead, he's at camp, participating, has been the whole time. Le'Veon Bell is not holding out for a new contract. He is rehabbing his groin. At some point, he will sign something, be it a new deal or be it that free agent tagged tender, and he will be in camp. We don't have anybody that's wanting to hold out. We're not in that boat. Thank goodness. I'm not going to talk about them anymore because they ignore us. But I still like the drink. It's good. So I don't want anybody panicking. When you start to read things about somebody potentially holding out, at this point in time, nobody is potentially holding out. I think Stephon Tuitt's deal gets done. I think he will do it to it and put the pen to paper. And I think that they will lock Stephon Tuitt up, and they should, because the guy is good. He is getting better. He improved after Cam went off the field injured last year. And between the two of them, I expect it to be a dynamic year. That ain't the end of it, though. After they lock up Tuitt, you got Shazier, who is growing into an impact playmaking, game-changing talent. He's going to have to get paid. You've got Sean Davis. You've got Artie Burns. And yes, I know we're 3-4 years away from them, but 3-4 years goes pretty quick. And if you wait until the end of those years before you get them into a longer-term deal, it's harder to do. Mike Mitchell's contract is up in a couple years, and whether we keep him or let him walk and have a new guy take over, it's up in the air at this point. I like Mike Mitchell. I like Mike. And I would like to see him stay. I'd like to see him finish out his career in the black and gold. He has improved, in my opinion, most years. And yes, sometimes he's a little dramatic. And please don't block me at I am Mike Mitchell, because I love you and you're fantastic. But you get a little dramatic sometimes with the yee-yee-yees and the you made me laugh. I spat out my drink last year when you hit the guy and you made the yee-yee-yee noise, and I couldn't help it. You made me laugh. But that's great. I love you. I think you're fantastic. So, I don't know that what they're going to do with Mike in a couple years, but hopefully they re-sign him and they extend his contract. But, we've got guys who are on board now. Martavis, his deal will be up. And if he, for all the worry and all the concern, the guy has come to camp and done the things that you would expect anybody to do. He hasn't been a distraction. He hasn't acted like a distraction. He has been there and participating and doing it well. And I've said this repeatedly. He is going to explode this year. It's going to be scary. That's my opinion. Provided something freaky doesn't happen, like an injury or something. Knock on wood. So, but you've got Martavis' contract that's going to come up. Then you start to get into the other guys. Eli Rogers is going to be somebody that they have to look at. Jesse James is going to be somebody they have to look at. Bud Dupree is going to be somebody they have to look at. And then you got Javon. And it never ends, guys. It never ends. Which is why it's not just this guy deserves to get paid. It's a balance. It's a give and take. And the Steelers have to place their money in ways that they try and do to keep the entire team. It's not like it was in the 70s, right? You can't just keep everybody forever because you get to limit what they're being paid. Free agency changes things, and it's tough to keep a squad together. So the Steelers are loaded with up-and-coming potential talented players. And they're going to have a lot of contracts that they have to deal with. Right now, the two that are the most worrisome, Le'Veon and Al, and then the next one coming up is Stephon Tuitt. I think Stephon Tuitt gets his extension this year. I could be wrong. I would be willing to say Stephon Tuitt can wait another year if they can get Le'Veon and Alejandro Villanueva done. But I'm going to tell you, I don't think that's happening. Okay. Until the next time around, let me again once more say, take a visit, go over to steelcityunderground.com/tickets, where you can use our StubHub link, who are now our official partner. We are officially partnered with StubHub to save you some money. And you can buy tickets for the Steelers, you can buy concert tickets, you can buy tickets to whatever you want, but you use that link and you'll save yourself some cash and you'll help support us, which we greatly appreciate it. The other thing I want to talk about is fan mail. We got a couple things for fan mail. So next Friday will be the first video fan mail podcast. So if you have an interest in getting your questions into Steel City Underground, so they can be read on the podcast, and we can talk about your questions and try and answer them, send it to fanmail@steelcityunderground.com. Leave just a comment under one of our blogs or under one of our video podcasts or podcasts. And next Friday will be the inaugural edition of Steel City Underground's fan mail, with actual fan mail from actual viewers, listeners, readers, whatever you want to call them. So, yeah, I saw it from Letterman. What do you want from me? I'm old, and Letterman was my guy. I think that's it for this time. Until next time, everyone, be good, and I will see you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.